Hello everyone. Tonight, I'll be narrating 3 new creepy stories about experiences people had while in retail stores. Liking this video and subscribing to my channel would benefit me greatly. After you've heard these stories, let me know what you thought of them in the comments below. But without further ado, let's dive straight into their experiences.
These are their stories.
I work at a popular retail store in a mall close to my on-campus apartment. I was home for Christmas break and decided to work Christmas Eve since I was promised time and a half and I could use the money to buy some extra Christmas presents. My childhood home is not very far from my apartment, but it's about an hour drive from my work to my childhood home. Our holiday hours were extended this year and I was given a closing shift for Christmas Eve. The store closed at 10 p.m. and the closing shift ended at 10:30, meaning that I would be getting home around midnight after swinging through a drive-thru to grab something to eat. The closing shift at the store usually had 2 employees and a manager working, but the other employee that was supposed to close with me was out sick, so it was just me and the manager. While the manager emptied and counted the cash drawers and wrote the daily report, I gathered up all the trash and cardboard and left it all by the back door in the stockroom. I dusted and vacuumed until the manager was finished with the daily report, and then he put in the combination to disable the alarm and held open the back door for me to take out the trash and cardboard. This was the part that was usually the most helpful, to have 2 employees instead of 1, because the dumpster was walled off and the manager had to wait by the door to make sure no one walked into the store. But the dumpster wasn't too far away and I wanted to get home as soon as possible, so I carried all the trash out. Our store shared the dumpster with only 3 other stores, all of which closed either before or after us, so I wasn't expecting to see anyone at the dumpster. I was so startled that I dropped my bags when I saw someone digging through the trash. He looked up at me when he heard the bags fall. "Oh hi, I dropped my wallet in the trash. Could you help me grab it?" he asked. 1,000 red flags went off in my brain and I immediately began to back away. I don't think I can. I need to take out the trash and get back to my store," I said, trying to walk towards the store slowly. "Which store do you work at?" he asked. I'm not sure why I told him, but I told him the store I worked at and he nodded. "Oh, nice store. You could just leave the bags here. I'll toss them when I'm done looking." I went back into the store at that point, a little creeped out but not suspecting anything else. I told my boss what happened and he laughed a little and he offered to walk me to my car as I parked in the lot behind the store and he parked in the parking garage attached to the main mall. I declined and walked in the nearly empty parking lot. There were only 3 cars in the parking lot, including mine. 1 car was parked close to the back entrance of a neighboring restaurant and the other car was parked just a few spots away from mine. I couldn't see the person inside, but the car was on and it looked like the person was trying to warm up the car from the inside before scraping off the ice on the windshield. I glanced at the car a few times just to mentally jot down the make and the model of the car, a blue Honda Accord. Before getting into my car and locking the doors, I called my parents to let them know that I was just now leaving and that I would be stopping to grab dinner on the way home so not to wait up. I kept my eyes peeled for the different fast food joints on the side of the highway, but the majority of them were closed as it was 11 p.m. on Christmas Eve. I was getting hungrier and hungrier as I got closer and closer to the exit for my house. I decided to just scrounge up some leftovers at home as I drove through my town when I saw a subway with blinking lights that said, "Open late." I peeled into the parking lot of the subway and saw the red LED sign indicating that it was open. I walked into the subway and took a look around as it looked pretty empty. I called out to the empty store and was able to get the attention of the only person working in the store. "I thought I locked that door. We just closed," he said. "Come on man, I just got off work and I just want to grab something to eat before I go to bed. I'll be really quick, I promise," I begged him. He sighed and agreed, probably taking pity on how exhausted I looked. We talked for a little bit about working the late shift on Christmas Eve as he made my sandwich before a group of teenage boys walked into the store. "We're closed guys, I'm going to lock the store after I'm done making our sandwich," he said. "But I want a sandwich," one of the boys whined. Fine. The subway employee got out from behind the counter and locked the door so no one else would be able to get in and he could ensure that the teenagers would be his last customers of the night. He finished making my sandwich and left me to pick out my drink and chips at the soda fountain. Most of the boys only bought bags of chips or cookies, so they were all finished before I finished filling up my soda and the subway employee disappeared into the back. I put the lid to my cup on and was looking for a straw when something caught my eye. The man from the dumpster was waiting in the parking lot next to my car. He was sitting on the hood of the car that was parked next to mine. It was the blue Honda Accord. I really started to freak out at that point. There was no reason for this guy to be in town an hour away from the mall at the exact same place I decided to stop if he wasn't following me. And what was he doing in the hood of his car? It was the day before Christmas. It was snowing and below 30 degrees. I walked out of the subway to my car. I felt a little silly because there was probably a perfectly good reason for the man from the dumpster to be in the parking lot, something that didn't have anything to do with me, but I was still nervous. The man didn't even look at me as I got into my car. I had about 10 minutes until I got to my house, and I tried to shake the weird feeling I got about the man in the dumpster. It took me a little while to notice, but I realized that there was someone following me. It was hard to see because the car's lights were off, but I noticed the car when I glanced in my rearview mirror as I drove under a street lamp. I started to get nervous again and drove past my house and turned back onto the main road hoping I would lose the guy. This car stayed on my tail and I watched in my rearview mirror as we went under a street light again. It was a blue Honda Accord. I pulled out my phone and called 911 and explained the situation to the dispatcher. The dispatcher advised me to drive to the nearest police station and told me she would inform the police station of what was going on. I stayed on the line with the dispatcher until I pulled into the police station. The Honda Accord drove past the station. There was a police car waiting outside the station that drove after the guy, but ultimately there was nothing they could besides give him a ticket for driving with his lights off. A description of the man by the dumpster matched the driver of the Accord. I don't know what he had planned, but I haven't seen him since and told my boss about the incident, so I won't have to take the trash out on my own anymore. I just hope that the man who followed me for over an hour doesn't come back. So at the time this happened, I was 21. I work in a very popular retail store and my work environment is very casual. We don't have a uniform apart from a lanyard that we wear around our necks, and we are encouraged to chat to customers for however long it takes to help them select an item and to feel comfortable around us so they can come back. Basic retail stuff. Because of this atmosphere, we have a lot of regular customers that come in every week or so. This is probably why I didn't think the following interactions were anything more than a lonely person who wanted to have a chat. So one day I was working and an older man around his late 30s walked up to me and just started chatting about general stuff, asking how I was, what my name was, what section of the store I worked in, etc. Then he left. I assumed he was a regular and that I just hadn't met him yet, so he was introducing himself. His name was Mitchell. Since that first interaction, Mitchell started to come to the store a lot more often. He always wore the same clothes, but surprisingly he didn't smell. He would always come up to me and have a quick chat. He particularly liked to compliment me on the clothes I was wearing, but it wasn't in an overly creepy way. He would say things like, "I like your dress, very colorful," or "Did you make that yourself? You seem like a creative person." I usually wore dresses that came up to my neck or covered my chest completely in some way, always just above the knee. Casual but still work appropriate. It started off that I would see him once a week, then gradually I started seeing him almost every shift I had. I was only casual at the time, so I worked around 3 to 4 shifts a week. Sometimes less, but usually on the same days, just different hours. I now realize he probably worked this out and was stalking me. The only thing I found out about him was his name, and he told me that he was a writer. There was a time that I didn't see him for a few weeks, but he would eventually reappear. When I did see him, he walked up to me and said, "Hey, it's been a while, do you want to go get a coffee and catch up?" I immediately replied with a cheery, "No thanks." He asked if I had a boyfriend and I said, "No, I just don't want to." He laughed and said fair enough, then left. I didn't see him for another while after that, but I did get a Facebook request from him despite not being friends or telling him my last name. I obviously blocked him. I told my sister Kitty about it, and she relayed the following story about a man who fit my description who used to come into her work a few years ago. Now Kitty is 2 years younger than me. She couldn't remember much apart from him always coming into her work, which was a video store when she was the only person on. One day Kitty was on a night by herself and he came in to hire some videos. Katie had her hair in a high ponytail with a white ribbon tied into a bow. They completed the transaction and Mitchell looked at her and said, "White is the color of purity." Kitty was confused, so Mitchell continued, "I'm a writer, so I have to know this sort of stuff. Are you wearing it because you think you're pure?" Kitty just awkwardly laughed it off and said she just liked it. Mitchell then left. Kitty said the video store closed down, and after a while she also sent a friend request and he also messaged her asking her out for coffee. Of course Kitty blocked him without replying. We decided to go into his Facebook. Kitty unblocked him, so we knew it was definitely the same Mitchell. We couldn't see much of his profile, but he didn't have any profile pictures of himself. After this, Kitty explained that she assumes he must have found her because her place of work used to be on her profile. Not since this incident though. I told my workmates about all of this, and one of them named Daniel said that his friend worked at a store across the road from ours, and he used to come into her work and do the same thing. He's been reported before, and a lot of girls that work in stores around my town have had him stalk them at their workplaces as well. The next time I saw Mitchell coming down from the aisle towards me, I got full spine-tingling chills, so I turned around and walked out the back and stayed out there until he had left the store. I did this a few more times to give him the message that I did not want to speak with him. The last time I can remember seeing him, he came up to the counter to pick up an item. I turned around when I saw him. I swiftly walked out the back again. I came back out a few minutes later and he was walking away, then all of a sudden, he walked straight back to the counter that I was behind and just stared at me across it before leaving. I rarely see him since I practically ghosted him in the store. He orders in the occasional item and I see his name on it. That's about the extent of our interaction. But if I get called up to help a customer and it's just him, I just palm him off to one of the guys I work with and go out the back. I still get the chills when I see him though. I work at a retail store in a not so nice part of town. Since the area isn't the best, not many people ever come into the store and even less people come in at night. Something important to note is that the store does not have any cameras nor does it have a panic button. So basically anyone could do anything, and we've had many people steal little things here and there. Looking back, this should have been my first clue to quit ASAP. I was working this night shift with me and my coworker. We were joking around and playing on our phones because it was about 7:30 p.m. at this point and no one had come in for about an hour. Suddenly, a group of people, 2 men and 1 woman, come in all at once. A side note about these people, they are all wearing black head to toe, facial tattoos, and were very confrontational upon arrival. The woman was a very built woman and I was honestly very intimidated by her. Her friends, the 2 men, were at least 6 foot each, towering over both me and my coworker who are both 5'3". One of the men immediately asked us what our ages were and complimented me on my smile. I'm kind of awkwardly laughing and trying to be as kind as possible to get these people to leave fast. The woman basically corners my coworker over in one of the aisles so she's unable to walk over to where I am, which is right behind the counter. The woman is basically yelling at my coworker, asking her, "Why don't you hire me? I need to work. Hire me." Pretty much scaring the both of us. While this is going on, one of the men walks over and blocks the door. The other man comes up to the counter and looks at all the $100 to $300 items we have stocked behind the counter and jokes to his friend about how he needs all those items. He then turns to me and says with a deadpan face, "Give me everything." I awkwardly laugh and say, "Everything?" He then says nothing and continues to stare right into my face for 5 more seconds before repeating everything. So I do just that. I start to take things off the shelves while he points to things saying, "Give me that, that, and that." He then stops and says, "You never asked me how I was going to pay for any of this." The entire time, his friends are saying nothing and standing still while staring at me. The man then breaks his stare and laughs, prompting all of his buddies to laugh along with him and states that they are going to come back. As soon as they leave, I make a beeline to the door and lock it. I call my manager and tell her what happened and I'm begging her to let us close because I do not want these people to come back. As if on cue, they come back and yank on the door, which is locked, and continue to yank it. I tell my coworker to run with me to the back and we lock the back room door and call the police. By the time the police arrive, they are gone, and nothing could be done because of the lack of any cameras in the store. The police stayed outside the store and their cars until we closed and walked me to my own car. Throughout this whole ordeal, no one was in the store besides my coworker and I. My theory was they were scoping out the situation before leaving and coming back with a firearm to actually carry out the robbery. Luckily, I had locked the door the moment they stepped out. I don't like to think about what could have happened if I had brushed it off and decided to leave the store open, but I was shaking like a leaf when they really hadn't done anything at all, so I trusted my gut feeling. I quit that job right after the incident. Alright, so that's it. I hope you enjoyed these stories. If you did, consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. But as always,
Have a nice day.